after my workshop, I was like, I was discussing this with my coach, and he's like, yeah, you need to understand that when you learn, you also acquire attitude from the person who's teaching you.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Despina. Despina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Visiting us all the way from Greece. I'm totally jealous. I don't want to say that at all. Awesome. So tell us who you are and give us a little bit of background on your business.
Okay. I'm a clinical dietitian, psychologist by profession. And at the moment, I have an office online. Now I've done the classic path of going through education and college, etc., and then I worked in different settings, clinical and non. But I always had this thing of being independent, having something of my own. And I did. Initially, it was just, the classic having an office somewhere in the city. But with finances going up and down and things not being so certain, etc., eventually I said, okay, I'm going online full. And that's what I did. So, and I do three things basically. I do one-to-one consultations. I'm an international speaker, so I give talks, and I also do workshops for health care providers, for health specialists. And my thing, my passion is communication in healthcare, how health professionals communicate with their patients. And I think this thing began when I was still, I always wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. And I went and became a volunteer at one of my hospitals in my town. And the thing that drew my attention is how health professionals communicated with the patients, how they spoke with them, how they treated them. Treated them socially. There was such a variety. Some were very humane, others were strict, others used to smile, others were frowning, and I used to see the effect that would have on the patient and the whole path of the treatment. Mm-hmm. So this was something that I set my mind on, that I needed to do something about it. So from, I don't know, more than 20 years back, I started joining all kinds of groups and associations that dealt with what was called patient education and patient approach. And it's amazing how it started all like a big no-no in a lot of cultures and societies, because the patient is not supposed to disagree with the doctor back then sometime. And it evolved. But, and I met brilliant people, pioneers who really did a lot of work in the field. But something just was missing. There was always something missing. I always wanted to do something more about it. So I decided, after I got my degrees and I went into experimental psychotherapy, I did. And then I became a health coach, and that I needed to combine all this. And I put together my own theory. And I called it the WWYP approach, which is WWYP. And it stands for work with yourself, work with your patient. Because I realized that there was one missing step in all the processes and the systems that were out there, that nobody puts the flashlight on the health professional. They're always taught how to sort of approach the patient, but nobody really says, hey, what about you? Are you polite? Are you ready? Can you speak? Do you communicate? So this was like the unique thing about my approach. And I was amazed at the beautiful results that it gave. So this is what I'm concentrating on. And this is the approach that I always use when I do my one-to-one consultations with my clients.
Right. So your clients are typically physicians, nurses, that kind of
Well,
people, or
for the workshops and for the talks, but for the one-to-one, I see clients who are in for weight loss and diabetes and cancer, but it's not just a simple nutrition consult, because I believe that the diagnosis has to be diagnosing the human patient and not the disease. So the diagnosis is not you have diabetes or you have a heart problem. The diagnosis is, who are you who has diabetes? Because I may be the specialist in nutrition, or somebody may be the specialist in diabetes and heart disease, but nobody knows your body more than you. And these two have to collaborate. And unfortunately, in most cases, they don't. Patients are just given instructions. And we health professionals have sort of managed to train the patients to behave a certain way with us. They come in, they immediately know where to sit. If it's a physical office, right?
yeah.
they know what to say. They know what they're not supposed to say. And it's, I don't think it should be that way.
Excellent. Well, we're glad somebody thinks it shouldn't be that way, because I'm personally thinking it's its time has come and gone. Let's put it that way. So kind of understanding from my background, from the kind of holistic, newer approaches of health and getting back to straight up nutrition. And so this feeds into a lot of what I think, and I'm going, yeah, everybody knows this, don't they? And then I go out into society and realize that no, they don't. So there's a whole lot that still has to be done, because I heard about this years ago, and I want to say it was like 40 or 50 years ago. And I think it was like a movie or something like that some physician had done, and realized, hey, people are actually healthier when you treat them nicely. What? Why would that happen? I don't understand. So I just assumed that everybody was doing this, but then I also have to, in my experience, take into account that a physician, a specialist, tends to be a very analytical thinker. They tend to be super smart and into the medicine. So when they do approach a person, they're really still, like, half the brain is still working on the problem solving and the, what's going on with this patient and how do we solve their problems, and thinking that, I'm here to solve your problem. I'm not here to be nice to you. And not from an attitude perspective, but from like, this is how I think. This is how I went through high school. This is how I went through university. This is how I got my PhDs, and this is how I got my specialties. And, so to be able to just take somebody out of that and go, hey, there's actually a person in front of you, seems to be a huge undertaking.
It is.
So
it is.
How do people go, maybe I should find somebody like you to help me through this? Or is it more of the systems going, hey, Dr. So-and-so, you need to go and talk to Despina? Or is it like, how did they get to know you in the first place?
I try to put myself out there so people hear about me, because it's not going to happen any other way. Yeah. What happens is that any idea that comes in the field or the market, it comes in the market. So believe it or not, for example, there is an approach system of communication in healthcare, which was built by an automobile company. So
things make you go,
implement what they did with people in the car industry the same thing with people in the health industry. No matter
Okay.
what sense it makes, but they did it. And the difficult thing is that everything boils down to a questionnaire.
Mhm.
We have a new system. So this is the questionnaire that you're going to be asking your patient. And it doesn't work like this. So what I do is, and I'm telling you, well, I'm going to confess that my toughest crowd are doctors.
I would think so.
Dietitians are easier, psychologists are easier, nurses are very nice, but doctors are tough. They don't like to be told what to do, and they don't like to be told what to do by a dietitian. Who are you to tell us what to do?
Hey, you're saying there's some
Now,
ego involved?
my easiest crowds would be doctors that are open to do something like this, and not all of them are the same. And this is why I very much make an effort now to try and go into academics, into universities and schools with medical students to try and teach them that from that point. Because once they're out, it's tough.
Right.
And a
Yeah, I
very
can see that.
interesting thing that I did once, I did a workshop with medical students. And I went there, and it was their last year. Now, I knew several of their professors, and I went there. And as I was doing the workshop, I would see behaviors in them that I would recognize their professors whom I knew. So after my workshop, I was like, I was discussing this with my coach, and he's like, yeah, you need to understand that when you learn, you also acquire attitude from the person who's teaching you. So that was a bit of a problem because they were already set in their ways of how to confront a patient. So you would understand.
Well, when you put it that way and we're confronting patients, that's probably a problem right off the bat. But but you know, in their defense, that's kind of how I approach them too. So yeah, I could benefit from your training too. I probably don't need to be quite so confrontational when I'm talking to them.
Yeah. So it is tough. But I'll tell you something, because you know, at some point I decided to really focus on the business part of my office because I had to.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I would do my talks, go to conferences, talk about my approach. They loved it. I'm a good speaker, but I wouldn't add the sales part of the thing at the end, you know,
Right.
to actually sell it. And in spite of that, my statistics showed that 12.5% of the audience wanted to attend a workshop. So I thought that was great for whichever reason it was. And I don't care what the reason is, as long as I just bring them into the workshop. So that was encouraging. That was encouraging. And I think the more people do the workshops, the more they will start accepting it. Because
talk to me about some of the research that you've gone through or seen, and how the doctor's attitude affects the patient. Like there's got to be some studies like that if they approach them in the way that you're suggesting, you know, what kind of differences can they expect to have, or what kind of different experience can the patient expect to have?
It's a matter of training. The doctor trains the patient, and the patient accepts this training for several reasons. Okay, let me gather my thoughts here.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're doing that, I'll just kind of explain where I'm coming from, because I think that the way that my mother, say, who's 90, approaches the medical profession, period, like whether she sees a commercial with a doctor in it or is actually in front of a doctor, and the way I approach it, it's a complete 180. Like we are on opposite ends of the spectrum. period.
Right.
So there are times when she knows that, and it becomes, hey, can you come and see this doctor with me because I'm not feeling like I'm getting what I need out of this. So she knows it, and for the majority of it, she just complies and does what that's what she always does. Complies.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking that's healthy, but I could be wrong.
No, because what happens is when you know how to communicate better with your patient, this is the key point, is that you provide a platform where they feel comfortable and confident enough to spill their guts out. And you want that as a health professional, because you want to know who's that person that you have in front of you. Now, if you do not do that and you just deliver the diagnosis and the instructions, you're doing that, I mean, mechanically, but you're not going to have the results that you want. You're not. I mean, we see people, especially in chronic disease, where they're not motivated to deal with their issue. They just go day after day, and they, recently I've been reading some posts on Facebook. I'm not going to quote because it was from a private group. And this lady with diabetes, she said, I went to my doctor yesterday and he told me XXX, which was really insulting. He insulted her, and he sort of, I don't know why he spoke to her like this, to scare her, maybe so that she can make a bigger effort. And I was thinking, how can somebody talk to his patient like this? And at the end she goes, I love it when the doctor is so caring. And I'm thinking, oh, she thought it was caring somehow for some reason. Okay, so there's a lot to see in the patient as well, because once you have a good relationship with your patient and they really expose what they want and what they don't want, they understand that they have their share of the responsibility in the treatment. And a lot of patients try to avoid that. They just want, I got these instructions, I did what they told me to do, that's it. No more than that. So it's a two-way street, I mean. But I try to concentrate on the doctors because this is the host. He's the person who receives the patient, and he has to make the patient comfortable in his office, in his place, in his space, or wherever. So that's the starting point. It's difficult. It's difficult, but there definitely has been a change throughout the years. People are asking, are asking for more communication, but at the same time, there's less and less time dedicated to the patient. You only have, there are places where they are literally told, no more than 10 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. So, okay.
What if it takes longer than 10 minutes to diagnose something? Well, and it doesn't really make sense, because if one patient, you know what it is, it takes 5 seconds, you're like, okay, done, next. That time accumulates and you go on to the next one, I would think. But I guess that makes sense that, somehow, some way they're trying to figure out how to fit within their budget and see as many people as possible, and it becomes difficult on both ends. And
I remember just a number that I was reading once, an article, and said that in the meeting between doctor and patient, the time that the patient has to speak averages about 17 seconds. What can you say in 17 seconds?
Well, I'm a speaker, so I can probably say more than the average person, but I'm sure they're thinking about it. I've got the whole speech ready. Well, and it comes down to, I think people are still, the masses still think that if I go to a doctor, they're going to solve all my problems for me because they know everything about everything. And I would think that it's obvious that we can't all know everything, no matter how smart somebody is. And, they could have a photographic memory or whatever other word used to describe that. and still not, know everything that there is to know in even a medical sense, or even a not pathogenic sense, like the ill side of things, let alone the creating health side of things. Like, it becomes a huge conundrum as how do we deal with this when we are under the time constraints, we're under the financial constraints, we're under the patient doesn't really know or understand themselves that well. They've never been taught to pay attention to their body, so why would they? And unless you're asking the exact right question to their exact right person, then you start to realize, hey, this is this is almost set up to be a failure, which can't possibly be fun for anybody, especially somebody with 15 years of university behind them.
That's true. That's true. It's, but there has to be a roadmap, and there's so many factors. There's body language, there's tone of voice, there's all kinds of things that you need to pay attention to in order to bring that person where you want them to be.
Nice. And it sounds a lot to me like sales training, which is kind of fun. In that it kind of sort of is, but at the same time, sales training is kind of a lot like what we were learning was a lot from, how doctors would approach their patients, because in a sense, you're looking to diagnose your prospects' issues as quickly as possible and give them accurate information back saying, we're probably not a fit, but it sounds like you need, this other solution to it. Which to me sounds like a lot of fun, but so when you're working with the doctors, I mean, are they, so you're looking for, tell us what you're looking for when you're working with them, in teaching them. So I'm assuming you're teaching them about the body language, about the words that
Yes.
the
Well, first
patients
of
are
all,
using.
it's communication and behavior. Everybody in medical and paramedical, you do psychology classes, but that doesn't really give you much. So basics of communication, first of all, how does a communication get blocked between two people, which is very important to understand. And then once they understand the basics, we go through different games and exercises. And that's very important because it puts the communication into a game, but they also discover a lot of things about their own behavior.
So do you get feedback from your clients afterwards? Like, do you know kind of what they're going through before and after they take one of your programs? Do you have an example of a Cinderella story of somebody that was...
I have I can give you the example of a patient who came into the office, and she was, and I give that because I can give this specific example without violating. So she came into my office, and she was obviously obese, and I realized she wanted to lose weight. So we started talking. She told me that she did all the diets that are out there. She was dieting on and off. She went to doctors, dietitians, to coaches. She registered to the gym, etc. And eventually somebody referred her to me, and I said, okay. So I jotted that down. Of course, I realized that there's always an issue behind having a lot of weight. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, what am I going to do today? Right. Let me just start eating more. It doesn't happen. But anyway, we started talking, and I used whatever I could to bring her where I wanted. And within 2 minutes, she's like, I want to stop you here and tell you something that I only discuss with my psychiatrist. And I said, what? She said, I wanted to say that I've been an abused child and an abused wife. So what that did is that immediately it changed the diagnosis. Because if I didn't have that piece of information, I would have concentrated on her nutrition, on her diet, and she probably would have walked out of my office with a diet regimen, which would have been the wrong treatment for her. So that was great because I knew I had to start somewhere else. And I knew that giving her a diet regimen wouldn't help, was
At
not going to
that
do her
point,
any. Yeah.
right? Well,
So,
and I assume
yeah.
it's extremely common to for people to do that, thinking, oh, I clearly have a physical issue. I clearly, you know, this is
Yes.
physical. It's
Right.
medical. I'm gonna
Right.
go and see a
Yeah.
doctor, right? And
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, obviously she knew at the back of her mind that it was related, but she didn't know. But what I did is that I gave her the opportunity to just say it.
right.
And that was a great help for me and eventually for her. So and this is the benefit of it is that you have a better picture of who you have in front of you.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Nice. So what are some of the stumbling blocks that somebody might be having right now and they're thinking, wow, Despina, I need you so badly?
Well, if they're not happy, whether they're a
Mhm.
patient and they're not happy with their health professional or the other way around, that they feel that every time they leave the meeting and not everything was said, that, I wanted to say this, but maybe it's not related, or a lot of patients do that. They think they choose to pick information and leave it out because they think it's going to sound silly or that it's not related or whatever, or that it's somebody else's specialty. But if you're going to a health professional, show your whole self. That's me. And they know where to start. And if you're a health professional and you're not satisfied, don't block it, because the only thing you're going to accomplish is become more and more insensitive to this. Patient in, patient out. And then I don't know if you want to be that kind of health professional, but you have to understand the wholeness of that person coming in. And with time, it becomes faster. They learn how to do it faster. At the beginning, it takes time. And they're like, they get pressured, or I'm not going to have enough time to do this with the patient. Well, yes, not right now, but in the long run, you're going to get the hang of it and it's going to be much faster.
I love it. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start that journey with you?
Well, first of all, you can contact me. I have my website, which is despinavaraklas.com. You can contact me there, or we can book a call and talk about whatever, it's on your mind.
Love that. And of course, peeps, we will have all of Despina's links in the show notes. So you can either scroll down. Of course, as always, go to awarenessstrategies.com/blog and look for Despina or health professionals or physicians and patients. That's very good that you will find her there. Awesome. So Despina, I have to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you were special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
A young age. I grew up in Jerusalem, and all that area from the Mediterranean up until, Southeast Asia is where the trade was, from ever we can remember. It's trade was always there. And what my dad was in real estate. He loved his orchard, but so from a very young girl, I was very intrigued when people came to buy something, how he behaved, what he said, what he didn't say, especially with money. But early on, when I was like 20, 21, I knew I had to do something with business. I knew I had to do it. And then, I was years in hospital settings, clinical settings. But when I got my own office, I was liberated. But I knew nothing about money. That was my tough journey. I had to learn about money. I thought, okay, this is an emergency. I don't know anything about money because I always had a salary. Of course, I remember that my worst time was closing the deal about my salary. I hated that meeting.
Right.
And I hated it because I didn't know how to handle it.
Mhm.
So I felt pressured. And then when I had my office, it's like, knock, knock, who's on the door? It's me, I'm Money. I'm thinking, I've never seen you like this before.
Right.
So, I had to train myself. I did a lot of training. I did several classes, whatever, until I got okay. Now I'm okay, and now I'm good.
I love it.
But I
Awesome.
love it, definitely. Yeah.
Very good. Any last words for our peeps today?
Well, yeah. We're all patients, right? Each and every one of us. Doctors are patients too. So when you go to your doctor, remember, show your entire self, who you are. And if you are a health professional and you feel whatever it is, any obstacle in your communication with your patient, don't leave it there. Don't leave it there because it's going to show up further down on the road. And so call me.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Despina.
Thank
I
you. Can
appreciate
I give a freebie? Oh, not a freebie. Anyway,
Of
some
course.
gift for
Absolutely.
the listeners. Okay. Now on my website, I usually have it on a 30-minute free consult.
Mhm.
And the purpose of this is that people would realize the difference between showing themselves and hiding themselves to their health professional so that they understand what I'm talking about. Now, other than that, for those who listen into this call, just mention that you heard me on Michelle's show, and you'll get, if you decide to move forward and do whatever it is with me, you're going to get a 20% off on top of it.
Wow. Nice. Well, thank you. That's awesome. So peeps, go and check out Despina's website and book that discovery call with her. You will love it and enjoy it. Thank you again for your time, Despina. I appreciate
Thank
it. I know how
you. It
valuable
was a
it is.
pleasure. Thank you.
This is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love making entrepreneurialism contagious.
Thank you for listening to our show. I'm all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support that they need to make it in business. As such, the notes for this show can be found at our website at awarenessstrategies.com/blog. Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating. I like 5 stars personally, and share with your friends.